This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
There we go. We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting at the City of Eau Claire. This meeting is being broadcast live by Valley Media Works on Charter Channel 994, WRFP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The Plan Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner, with the constraint that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and business-like fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, then others, either for or against the proposal, are each permitted to speak once. We do request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent in the use of time. We want to make sure that we have adequate time to review and discuss all the items with equal diligence. Please remember to turn your phones off or to silent so they don't disrupt the meeting. If you do plan to speak tonight, there are little orange pieces of paper, yellow pieces of paper back there, a slip. If you could fill that out and hand them to Mr. Petrie over here before you speak, and then we'll ask you to give your name and address when you come to speak at the microphone. So with that, we'll begin with item number 1, which is a public hearing for recommendation to City Council to rezone from R2P to R3P in area west of Kane Road and south of Highway 12. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Chairman Larson. Members of the Plan Commission, members of the public that are in attendance. This is a rehearing from the September 30th meeting that this board decided to postpone this item. The applicant is SC Sidursky LLC out of Mosinee, Wisconsin. The engineer on the project is Advanced Engineering Concepts. It's number 1 on the map shown on the screen. It is a parcel that is approximately 108.4 acres, as shown on the screen. The notifications that went out, we did re-notify. We put new flyers in the sign. Since this is a rehearing, there's many members of the public here on behalf of this item. Also, there's an aerial photograph showing the parcel, vacant parcel. To the south is the golf course and a church. To the east is a condo association and 4-unit apartments. To the north is Menards Corporation. To the west is a variety of vacant land, parkland, pond land, and assisted living, memory care, and single-family homes and bay homes. This proposal has been revised slightly before you. Staff would note the revisions were marked out in the staff report in front of you. Just some history of the land. It was annexed into the city in the 1980s from the town of Union. The original land was rezoned with a general development plan in 2003, again amended in 2004. The master plan showed a variety of single-family to multifamily to commercial and open space. The same applicant in 2017 did apply for rezoning to R3P with a general development plan for 12 3-story apartments, 618 dwelling units on 54 acres. That plan was denied from this commission and also City Council. They've come back and revised their plan. The major changes, as you'll note in the conditions, they did provide a transitional area as you head west. They're leaving that for future development, 6 acres for twin home development. As you transition to the west, that's single family existing there. This proposal is the general development plan with a variety of apartment buildings and twin homes as noted. Attached in your packet is the narrative provided by the applicant, a concept map, proposed building elevations, and again, the general development plan. The remaining 25.6 acres will remain R2P for single family. That's located on the southwest of this project. Here's a zoomed in concept layout of what they are proposing. better for the screen. As I noted before, on the west side, that is suited for future development for twin homes. The comprehensive plan notes this area as transitional. What that means is it's a low-density residential, medium-high-density residential, and commercial. The area along Highway 12, 312 North Crossing is noted as commercial. The land along Kane Road is noted as medium to high-density residential. And then to the west, there should be a transitional to low-density residential. The map is shown on the screen. Getting into the proposal, the applicant will make a presentation as well, but they are proposing a community center, which will house the maintenance facility, offices, community room, and fitness center. There's a variety of units and a variety of building types. For example, this is the Bedford, which is 2 and 3 bedroom, 1-story bay homes with 2-car garages. This is a larger scale apartment complex that's 2 stories. Again, there's another attached garages, 2-story elevation. This one has attached garages, a mixture of 2 bedrooms with 1-car and 2-car attached. This has a large courtroom area for 2 and 3 bedrooms. And again, just showing the different concepts throughout the neighborhood of the 108 acres that's being rezoned. This is the larger scale townhomes. This is showing there's variety within the neighborhood that the comprehensive plan has noted, that's in your report. I would note the change again. They're proposing 2 changes. The development has 4 units, 6 units, 8 units, 16 units, and 20-unit apartments. And again, I will note the 6 acres for twin home development. They are proposing a variety of green spaces and variety within the apartment complexes. The comprehensive plan calls for favorable review of projects with more than 2 housing types. And the plan states multifamily should be in a transitional area between commercial and single-family areas. Again, I will note that the change for dwelling units now has gone down from 564 units to 536 units, a mixture of 1s, 2s, 3-bedroom options. The proposed setbacks are 30 feet in the front, 8 on the sides, and 25 on the rear. The setback along Kane Road is a 30-foot, and along North Crossing is a 50-foot setback. The dwelling units will be studios, apartments, 1s and 2s and 3 bedrooms, ranging from 650 to 1,700 square feet within the apartments. This is the first step in the review. The preliminary plat, the final plat, and final site plan will need to go through the process in the future, along with the developer's agreement. A proposed trail is shown on the map as well. They are proposing sidewalks throughout the development. I would note another change from the plan was they are providing a similar landscape buffer along Kane Road as the condos requested that. They have shown that on the revised plan as well. I would note that also the common open space is calculated to be at least 15%. Landscape plan and street lighting and lighting will be reviewed at a later date, along with sidewalks and walking paths. I would turn it over. We're going to do a tag team presentation as well tonight. I would turn it over for the rest of the presentation to Leah, and then we'll both answer questions.
At the previous hearing, we heard neighborhood concerns regarding the increase in traffic through the neighborhoods and drainage concerns related to engineering. In our transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan, there are objectives to address development, transportation, and recommendations on how to design for those capacity needs or improvements. Specifically, objective number 5 is neighborhood streets. Design neighborhood streets with features for driving, bicycle, walking, and riding the bus while limiting the negative effects on adjacent land use. One thing I wanted to note with the traffic increase is that if there is increased traffic through the neighborhood to the west and on Kane Road, that's being looked at within the traffic impact analysis that we are recommending being updated, and then also looking at traffic calming measures as needed throughout the development to address the concerns of speed and safety. With the public utilities plan part of the comprehensive plan, we also have an objective number 4 that says surface and groundwater protection. The city of Eau Claire is a part of the MS4 communities within the state of Wisconsin, and we have a permit that we have to follow. As a part of that permit, we have to follow stormwater permit implementations throughout the city and the development. And part of this is, gives us the authority to control stormwater runoff for new development, monitor our existing systems and programs, and our stormwater management catch basins, look at our street sweeping and things along those lines. So that's also part of our comprehensive plan, and with the drainage and stormwater calculations that we require, that's part of the addressing the needs of the objective number 4 in our comprehensive plan. As I had mentioned, we are requesting a TIA for this development. The development initially completed a TIA in 2017 that was reviewed. It looked at 3 intersections, the US Highway 12 and Mill Run Road, US Highway 12 and County Trunk Highway TT, and which is Kane Road, and Kane Road with the Mill Ridge Circle, or the proposed driveway access to the development off of Kane Road. The goal of the TIA is to identify and indicate traffic impacts of the development under an average traffic condition. And we want to provide an existing level of service, or at least meet a level of service C or better, whichever is determined. The TIA also will review the phasing of the development. And initially, when we looked at the traffic for the planned development in 2017, we estimated approximately 72% of the traffic was exiting and entering off of Kane Road from the development. The TIA follows the WSDOT standards, and it's a process that requires the developer or their consultant to provide us initial information. Myself, internal staff, the county, Eau Claire County, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation review the information and agree upon the information, and then provide that feedback to the consultant, who continues on with the analysis of the traffic impacts after that. They provide the analysis back to our group, and again, we review and provide comment on that, and that's the kind of the TIA process. That ends up in that results in identifying needed improvements to the transportation system for bicycles, pedestrians, motoring traffic, all transportation modes. As Ryan had mentioned, the development is currently estimating 536 units plus the future single-family proposed development on the southwest side of the site. That results in a trip generation of approximately 255 to 310 trips for the peak hour. In the original submittal, it was 295 to 355 trips, so there is a trip reduction compared to the last submittal. Some of the questions that we had previously regarding access onto Kane Road, I did follow up with the county, and the current county policy is that there needs to be a minimum spacing of 400 feet between intersections and the driveway right-of-way. When we do our measurements from 12 to the south along Kane Road, that limits this site to one driveway access onto Kane Road. The results of the original TIA, which had a higher trip generation and 72% of the traffic using Kane Road, came back showing that the queuing on Old Mill Plaza would require some additional signage for southbound traffic. And then the turn lanes that were estimated, storage for the turn lanes on Kane Road were adequate to meet the demands of the traffic generated by the development. This I provided last time just to kind of show some of the information that we rely on for developing the guidelines, or the guidelines that we use to develop the design of the streets when we move forward in the process. And then to look a little more at the area drainage system, our surface water management plan was updated in 2018 by Barr Consultants. As a part of that, they recommended that the city model their drainage systems, which we have programmed for 2020 and 2021. And the stormwater utility account includes for the model, so we can address some of the needs in this area as this project moves forward. Looking at some of the old submittals for looking at the drainage in the area, you can see in the upper left-hand corner is the existing, or as of, I believe, 2016 is our aerials, development in the proposed area for stormwater systems. And then the map below shows what was proposed for that area, and they are pretty similar. Looking on the east side, there was some concern from the Mill Ridge condos east of Kane Road regarding some drainage issues in the ditch. We're looking further into that, but that isn't directly related to this development. The city will look into that, and if there's changes that need to be made to address those drainage concerns. Similarly to the west, there was some drainage concerns with the existing pond that you can see in the photos, and we're taking a look into that further as well. The developer does have an engineer on staff that will look at the grading and drainage plans and provide them to the city for review. And the previous studies that have been done in this area for grading and drainage have been provided to that consultant. And with that, we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for staff? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Chairman Larson. Ms. Ness, in the presentation at our last meeting, there was concern about the safety of the two cul-de-sacs for emergency vehicles, and that resulted in a suggestion that maybe Stonewood could be continued through the north side of this development. Is there a possibility that that could happen, or what prevents that from happening in this development?
As you can see in the aerial photo that's on the screen right now, the cul-de-sac of Stonewood ends and it becomes two private properties to the east of the cul-de-sac. There's an additional parcel in between those two parcels and the developer's parcel. So the developer would need to work with those three property owners to make that connection. Additionally, from a traffic standpoint, I know the neighborhood to the west would prefer to have that east-west connection north of the neighborhood, so vehicles aren't traveling north-south on Mill Run Road through the residential area. It would allow for more traffic to use Mill Run Road. I would anticipate if that connection was made at that intersection, but it would also potentially have more impact at that intersection. And analysis would change traffic-wise with that.
May I have a follow-up? Yes. I just want to clarify what I heard you say. When you say it would increase traffic on Mill Run, do you mean at the intersection heading south, but not necessarily all the way down into the residential area?
Correct,
So it
at
would
the
increase
intersection of
at the lighting.
Stonewood
Thank
and
you.
Mill Run Road, and then at Mill Run Road and US Highway 12.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Commissioner Gregor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Ness, I guess one of the questions that's come up in my mind with a development of this size is just the topic of recreational space and the outdoor open spaces. Obviously, there is one trail segment in the northeast of the development, but and then there appears to be a private park or open space area, or not owned by the city at least, on the west. That's part of previous development. So I guess my question is, what kind of park space is there as part of the project or planned by the city in the future, given the development that seems to be imminent?
Ryan, would you have an answer on that?
Excellent question. The applicant is here as well to talk about open space and park space. I do know at the community center that would be open to the residents. I do know that there is existing park just to the west. But as other parks or trails, I'm not aware of at this time, but the applicant might be able to answer that question.
Thank you.
Any more questions for staff from the commission? Mr. Peterson.
If I recall from reading this over the weekend, they were going to do some stormwater drainage to the southwest corner of Kane Road and 312, as opposed to going through the cul-de-sacs on the south edge of this property. The culverts under Kane Road, that the drainage was going to go to the northeast.
Originally, the plan was that the drainage would all go to the northeast, with the exception of some of the detention ponds that are on site. But we will be looking at the crossings that are existing across Kane Road as well.
Okay, because I know there's been problems, especially this last year.
Correct.
All right, one more time. Any questions from the commission for staff? All right, is the applicant here? Please come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chairman and Commission members. My name is Nathaniel Pop. I'm the Operations Manager, 217-205 Red Cedar Drive, Hadley, Wisconsin. So city staff did a great job kind of bringing you up to speed a little bit and from the last meeting. So I'll kind of just touch base and in respect to everyone's time, kind of give you a little bit of recap from last meeting and then kind of jump into what we had, the discussion we had with the Homeowner Association on last Tuesday. So we are SC Swiderski. Myself is here tonight along with Scott Wessel, our broker, Miss Jackie and Miss April. We're unfortunately not be able to make it. Miss April is at the Packer game and Miss Jackie's on her honeymoon. So you get me tonight. So we are SC Swiderski. We are a family-owned business located out of Mosinee, Wisconsin. We have just about 27 years under our belt. We specialize in multifamily. We're kind of an all-encompassing, one-stop shop. We have a real estate division, our construction division, and then our property management division. The biggest thing that I kind of, we pride ourselves on being a sole owner is we have control over all of our communities, and we pride ourselves on bringing that service is truly our number one goal for all of our tenants. And we don't have any outside influence. Being a sole owner, we don't have any outside influence. we get to dictate the type of and level of service that we bring to our communities. Map-wise, we are in about 20 communities throughout the state. We're hoping to make that 21, I guess. I'll just keep it at that. So jump into kind of our discussion last week, Tuesday. I know one of the questions that kind of came up was, the notification, why they weren't notified. I guess a little bit of a bad on our part. We were unaware of it a little bit, to kind of answer your question from last time. I know we've been working on this development for over 2 years now. And we so this was just kind of one of the points we talked about last Tuesday, that, they're kind of outside of that zone, and, shame on us, I guess, for not knowing that there was another homeowner association, but we did take the opportunity last Tuesday to, have a discussion with them, and hence the reason why they weren't notified. Kind of they're outside that 300-foot range. One of the maps one of the visuals we brought with, just kind of a visual, because we kind of got the impression from last meeting that our development would actually, butt right up to there. So this kind of does show the orange. The multifamily is that's the parcel that we do own. The Westwood Village owned is the red. The blue is the city owned. I believe that's the park there. And then all the green is another private owner. So there kind of is that buffer in between, our development and the Westwood Village. So we kind of wanted to point that out. It seemed like that was something that it felt like we were, butting right up to them, which we're not. Next visual, we kind of, this was kind of another just a topic of discussion that we brought to, last Tuesday's meeting, of just, what the original development, was approved for and was kind of looking like. We, in our opinion, we truly feel that the site plan is more of a symmetrical, more seamless, not so many moving parts to it. And we really wanted to just point out that we're not, with this map, that we're not here to rezone it based on density. We're actually a little bit under the density of what the original development was. So we're actually not asking for rezoning to increase the density. We're actually just asking for rezoning to change the style of building from single family to multifamily. And the one thing that was up for discussion too was, does a single family home generate more cars and traffic than one unit of apartment? And that was kind of a back and forth. Well, hey, I would say that with a one-bedroom apartment, I would assume that one-bedroom apartment would probably create less traffic and vehicle-wise than a single-family home. Once we get into our three-bedroom homes, I think it's kind of an apples to apples. So this was kind of just a topic of discussion also, that we're not going for higher density. We want to keep the community feel to our community also. So this is just kind of highlighting our new site plan, or revised a little bit. Part of what we heard last meeting also was, an ask for a little bit more single-family development. So we did take out, as Ryan did point out, some of our 4 units and our Bedfords, and we're keeping that area open for future development for potentially twin homes. Taking those out does change our percentage a little bit. So now actually it does bump up our workforce housing units a little bit more now by reducing that. So as of right now, our development, we are looking at 72.39% of our development would be considered workforce housing. And we do have that little asterisk there, and we do have it on the bottom, but workforce housing defined as rent rates, including utilities, appropriate for those making 60 to 100% of the county median household income. And then we do have a breakdown up there of, all of our units and where they lie within that, and percentage-wise for each one. And then Ryan did point it out, our new revised site plan we're now at 536 units. Kind of just a zoomed in area that Ryan did point out, and I did already myself, of the area that we did have some multifamily, which now we're future development for twin homes. Just kind of some visuals that our architecture department did put together. Once again, you've kind of seen these, and Ryan did touch on them also. This was a view actually from the Westwood development, just kind of a visual also looking across the pond, how that would look from 1,000 feet away, which they are. Kind of once again just pointing out that we're not butting right up to, you know, the current development. To kind of touch on your point a little bit, you know, green space, this is, I mean, with our community room, but even kind of having the visual, with the density that we have, I mean, I feel that there is, you know, quite a bit of green space throughout the development, and even with, you know, hopefully as we move further through this process, we do have that one big parcel there with our retention pond, and those aren't, once we have engineering done, we'll be able to have a true understanding of where all of our stormwater and retention ponds would go. So we're always open to, you know, having, you know, whether it could be a park, it could be a playground. You know, we want to have an amenity also, you know, outside of the community room for our tenants. Once again, kind of a visual of the workforce. This is of our workforce housing that's to the north of the property. Once again, it kind of points out the amount of green space that is on the property. And this is kind of our more upscale housing, ones that aren't considered our workforce. Those would be our Cambria Scout and our Kingston buildings. Those are all 4, 8, and 12 unit buildings. Little visuals, just some of our interiors that we have now. And then I'll kind of just end with, you know, what kind of Jackie did last time also is, you know, we really do pride ourselves on building a community, and one of the, you know, comments that we had last week with, you know, there's a very heartfelt speech made by one of the members, and, you know, that they want to have a place where their children can feel safe and they can retire, and I kind of, as she was done, I just said, we want the same thing. You know, it kind of broke my heart a little bit at the last meeting, the planning commission meeting, when I heard that they would feel afraid to send their children into our development, where at our meeting last week, we welcome them all, because the company that we are, we uphold our lease, and it only benefits us as a company to have quality tenants, because we're in it for the long run. You know, we build, own, and maintain our assets hopefully for the life cycle of that. So, you know, we want to make sure that we have you know, good tenants, good people, and, you know, a good community also. So I truly feel that we would be a, you know, good fit and an addition to the community. Questions for me?
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission for the applicant? Commissioner Wolfgram. Yep.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. Mr. Pop, I really appreciate the detail in your plan, and I want to acknowledge your intentionality in really being a community stakeholder by so significantly contributing to our critical need for affordable housing, and in your case, 72% of your units to workforce housing, and also having an on-site property manager. So I'm supporting this development as it is, but I do want to ask if you would consider, just think about mixing your numbers up just a bit, with maybe 15 to 20% of the 72 being 30 to 60% of CMI. Those are incomes between $15,000 and $28,000 a year. And that's if someone is working full-time, and this is why I'm asking you to just consider it, that this particular area is an area of low wage and high employment occupations, and many are part-time. So you have Menards Distribution Center, who also contracts out their security, and security is historically low wage. A couple of nursing homes, hotels, restaurants. And in Eau Claire, we have over 31,000 workers in these low-pay, high-employment occupations. All of us know somebody, friends, family members, that are working in these jobs. representing just under 40% of our workforce. So these folks are often left out of the definition of workforce housing, but they're extremely cost burdened. So we all know that, that housing at every level of income is short. And I would just ask that you consider a certain percentage at the 30 to 60. Our Chippewa Valley Affordable Housing Task Force states too that the most acute need is for quality rental housing that's affordable for persons of low income. Not people you have to be afraid of, quote unquote, but people that we all know. So I would just ask that you consider that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Your microphone's still on. This is a public hearing. So are there any members of the public who came tonight to speak on this item? Hi, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I have a cold, so I might be a little rusty here. But my name is Gloria Helmbrecht, and I'm the president of the Westridge Village HOA. I live at 4027 Mill Run Road. And you met me the last time on the 30th, and I kind of voiced some of our concerns. And since then, we did meet with SCS, and it was a successful meeting. I felt that they truly want to work with us and are pretty much on board. There was a lot of concerns at the last meeting. We heard significant concerns expressed over the water runoff situation in the proposed development. And since then, we have every confidence that this important issue will be dealt with through the continued oversight of this commission. I'm sure the developer doesn't want their apartments to be underwater, so they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that doesn't happen. However, in speaking with them, we did not sense from the commission that the same level of concern regarding the expected traffic increase through our neighborhood on Mill Run Road has really been addressed. It was great that Leo was there and Mr. Petrie. We asked them a lot of questions and we were trying to get answers. Some of them were answered previously here, so I'll try to skim over that part so I don't duplicate what we've already heard. But one of the things is we did get the engineering analysis and report from the engineering department, and so this is how I came up with the statistics that I have here for traffic. Our current peak traffic on Mill Run Road is 10 to 12 slow-moving vehicles per hour. And at this time, we have a lot of building going on, so it's a lot of construction trucks right now. If we receive the expected 20 to 30% traffic flow from the new development, that number becomes 70 to 105 vehicles per hour. So this equates to 1 to 2 vehicles per minute. This is an 8-fold increase, and much of this traffic will be racing to and from work. So kind of imagine how that would be quite a big increase in a neighborhood that is as quiet as our neighborhood is. For our safety, for our children, if you visit our neighborhood, you'll see that we have numerous households with children, and 2 of them that wrote you letters the last time are here. One, they're way in the back there. They wanted to represent, so they're here. And these kids, these 2 especially, they're all over the neighborhood, talking to neighbors, meeting everybody, going from house to house. We have bikes and skates that are on the sidewalks and the roads all the time. So we have quite a number of children in this subdivision. So this level of traffic is going to represent a significant increase of risk to our children. And our members are worried that our children will be hurt in some manner if the traffic increases this much. The cost to the Mill Run homeowners, we found out there is also the issue of the additional financial costs that our community would have to bear and maintain Mill Run's road excessive use. As we understand it, there's a formula the city uses to assess homeowners a share of the cost for road upkeep. Our very narrow roadways may need to be widened at some point to accommodate this traffic. As such, the central islands would need to be torn out. Pavement will deteriorate much more quickly, and speed bumps would probably have to be added. So we ask ourselves, why should our community have to bear the cost burdens of the new developer's business traffic? Because essentially, they are a business. They're not in this for free. They're a business. Although that they're providing a great asset to the community, they're still a business. And this developer benefits by the use of this exit, and in turn will have a financial gain because of it. We do not believe that this is fair to us. Since it is the city that is requesting these exits, we are wondering why the city assumes it's okay to transfer the burden of this cost to the people of Mill Run Road. So we're kind of concerned about that. And since SCS indicated that they would only be about 70% completed when the traffic is run through Mill Run, that means the current members only, the existing members that we have right now, would incur this cost, not the new builds, because they wouldn't be up and running yet. Does that make sense? If everyone were assessed this fee and it spread over the entire complex and subdivision, then it would be minimal to everyone. But as we understood it, there's a formula the city uses, and Mill Run would be assessed, not the new builds. Okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know. I could be wrong, I'm not sure. So we did come up, we were talking to SCS about multiple solutions, and how do you pronounce your name, Leah or Leah? Leah? And Leah about what we could do, and some of them you've already addressed. The first one that I have on the paper here to mitigate the traffic on Mill Run Road is Christopher Drive, and in conversations with the developer, it was indicated that this connection was planned for future development to the west. We asked that this connection be required at the same time Mill Run Road is connected. That would give an immediate additional exit entry to the west all the way to Town Hall Road. So that would help take some of the burden off of us. Stonewood Drive would be our preferred. Stonewood Drive access would give an immediate entry-exit point to the north. As you know, a significant portion of the developer's apartments are on the north side of the property, adjacent to Stonewood Drive. It would be very convenient for the residents to use this road. This was also the original plan for the West Ridge Village development. We were told that now the nursing homes would be in the way of developing this, and that private landowner, which is Investment Realty. If that is the case, then future expansion of the 108 acres that SCS, if that is the case, then the city should have considered this when it was zoned commercial for these nursing homes, and any future expansion of the 108 acres that SCS had purchased. Since this was not a consideration, now Mill Run will bear the burden of the cost of a new road with increased traffic sometime down the line. You know, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, but like I said, you know, some of us are there kind of for the long runs, and we just kind of don't want to move anymore. I've moved 18 times, I'm done. You know, I do not want to do this again. I want to retire here, and my husband said he's going to die in this house, and he says I'm going to put his ashes up on the mantle, and I said, but what will my new husband say? So if he was here, he'd laugh. So anyway, and as we were talking tonight, I understand that there's only one exit that's available on Kane Road. And we did have some members visit the WASA, the SCS WASA, it's called Westwood on the west side, Westwood on the west side. And from what they could see, there's only one exit in and out of the complex right now. So they're indicating to us that these requirements are the city's requirements. So the conclusion for what I'm trying to ask for is Stonewood would be our preferred, is to run that street all the way through, and connecting to Christopher Drive when you run Mill Run all the way through to help, you know, accommodate some of that traffic. And we don't have any objections to this project other than the traffic and the fact that we have to pay the bill down the road for their business. Does that make sense? So we just want to make sure we can maybe come to some kind of conclusion or consideration for our homes. Because essentially, it would be the people that are in this room, it would be their homes. Like I said, everything else wouldn't be built out yet, so they wouldn't be getting taxed that money. Does that make sense? Unless I'm wrong? Is that how it goes?
I can address some of the cost-related concerns with the development. The traffic impact analysis will provide recommendations on intersection control treatments. It will look at traffic calming throughout the neighborhood. And maybe when the connection from this development to the west is made, a traffic circle is placed, like a mini roundabout, or maybe at certain intersections, there's traffic calming measures such as bump outs or a raised intersection.
We're not
So
worried
the
about-
developer would incur those costs.
Oh, they would.
They
Okay.
would incur those costs. Specifically to Mill Run Road, the additional traffic, if there's needed improvements with the additional traffic to hold the queuing that's there with the, as a result of the additional traffic from the development, and a turn lane needs to be extended or control has to change at the intersection, that would be incurred by the developer. But the long-term wear and tear of additional traffic on the street would go to the property owners when the street was redone through the CIP process, similar to any other street in the city.
Okay. So we're wondering too, if there's any other subdivision that this has happened to, where something, like a business has gone up, and then they were asked to pay for some improvements on their road. Anything else like that in the city? See my point?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So is there any other place in the city that was adjacent to a business going up where the homeowners had to pay for the deterioration of the road because of that business traffic?
As Leah was saying, it's really just the normal wear and tear of the street. I guess it'd be hard to say whether, this project would accelerate deterioration of, Mill Run Road, for example. It's hard to say.
Well, 10 vehicles an hour versus, what did I?
255 to 310.
Yep, that's it. Would be a huge, significant difference during the workday. I mean, I can't speak about, or the work week, I'm not sure about the weekend, but the work week, that would be significant to our road.
Again, I
Go
don't
ahead.
have anything to add, Mr. Chair, other than, and from staff's perspective, but again, as the applicant showed as well, and staff was showing as well, that their proposed development in this area for quite some time, several different versions, so it's just a little bit more specificity, I think, at this point in terms of how many vehicles will be traveling through Mill Run Road, but there is always an expectation there would be additional traffic going that way. So
Correct.
that's why I say it's hard to say, between those other projects that are no longer before the Plan Commission and what's before them now, what the difference is. Yeah, from existing current standard, current situation to this project, yes, there's a difference, obviously. But based on those other projects that, were approved or discussed and no longer valid, that's why I guess we didn't, I don't know, defer to Leah, you didn't really compare the previous projects with the current proposed projects.
I did look at the original TIA that was completed versus the proposed trip generation for
The one from
this.
2017? Mm-hmm. But for this project here?
Yep, and for this project. So the number of trips being generated by this project is less than what was proposed previously in 2017. Originally, there were how Christopher Drive was connected on the west side showed that it was connecting to Town Hall Road individually, and that came up now, and
So Christopher, yeah,
Christopher connects right now.
Right.
There was another connection proposed to the south of there, but it now wraps up and intersects Christopher, and Christopher goes out, and Renee goes out. So going east-west on those streets, we didn't look at potential traffic going out onto Town Hall Road. Those are additional exits that potentially could be used as well, taking traffic off of the Mill Run Road. It will go further to the west, but the percentage of that traffic would probably be less because of the direction that they're traveling. The percentage of traffic, how we got to the 22% using Mill Run Road, was based on the existing counts out there, historical traffic data on the streets around the area, and the traffic impact analysis that was completed previously to the west for the Quick Trip development. So we incorporated the Quick Trip TIA into the 2017 TIA, and then now that information will be updated. And, you know, the trips generated is an estimate based off of the ITE standards. In Eau Claire, typically we find if the developer or the business has more specific information to their development or their business that they're proposing, that they can give us more specific numbers. Typically, those numbers are lower than what the ITE trip generation manual shows. So presenting the numbers that we have in the report right now are typically on the higher side of the trip generations, which we would expect. Usually, if a company has specific data to their business, it shows that those trips are much lower.
it is, but they could be higher, it could be lower. I mean, like you said, it's an estimate. Even if we went to 200 cars, that's still quite a bit more traffic than what our road is used to, going down Mill Run. And like the other alternatives, you kind of nixed already. The city, the city's requiring these exits, but Kane Road isn't a possibility anymore unless you're not going to require any more exits in and out of SCS's project. And then, so Stonewood is basically the only probability we have right now, and that was in the original plans for Westridge Village. So I guess we're kind of stuck on that. It's like, can we keep to the original plan for that and have that go into their project? I know that there's some obstacles, but the city has had obstacles before and overcome them. So I am very confident you can do it this time. So. So any more questions?
Any more questions from the commission? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Helmbrecht, thank you for all the work you put into representing your association. The Mill Run Road, has there been the impression in the neighborhood that would be essentially a dead-end road, or has
No.
it been always under the understanding that it would be a through street to Kane Road?
Correct. It
Okay.
would be a through street, but then the costs would be with the new builds. It wouldn't be with the current members that are, we'd have new builds. As the street progresses, then we'd have new builds, and so that they would join in the cost of that road when it needs to be upgraded. But as it is now, they're not going to develop that area until the end, so there would be no new builds. So the people living on Mill Run right now would incur that cost. And then I just wanted we do have a public park on the end of Mill Run that is a city-owned park, but they don't maintain it. they mow, but that's it. They don't maintain that park at all. We do. So we've kept up that park the best that we can with our abilities, but the city doesn't maintain it. And I guess, you know, we're the last ones to get snow plowed. Our city park doesn't get maintained. You know, now we're looking at, you know, this, you know, cost down the road, whatever it may be. And you know, in my experience, building costs go up, they don't go down. So even if you say that it'll happen in 3 to 5 years, that means our construction costs went up, you know, in 3 to 5 years. You give us an estimate and a formula now, it probably will go up 35% in 3 to 5 years. So we just don't want to incur that cost for another business. We're not against the project. We just don't want to pay for them, their business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I have a follow-up question, if that's all right. So do you foresee residents in Westridge and along Mill Run, like using this easterly connection that would be built with this? Or do you see all that, the traffic continuing to go to the north?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess-
it'll continually go to the north. I mean, I'm just going off of the basis of I know my members right now on that road and what their jobs are, so they have no need to go the other way to get to their jobs. So.
Any other questions? Commissioner Peterson?
For Ms. Ness, if you would, with Mill Run Road, does this amount of traffic increase signify that additional lanes are going to be needed?
No additional lanes are proposed with the increase in traffic. In the peak hour, originally, as was mentioned, the traffic on Mill Run Road going northbound was approximately 15 vehicles. A lane can accommodate over 1,000 vehicles an hour, so no additional turn lanes or lanes on Mill Run Road would be needed.
Okay, and one of the problems with Stonewood Drive or even Kane Court, which comes off of Kane Road just immediately south of 312, with that proximity, that causes problems.
Correct.
If you ever drive the frontage road across from Sacred Hospital, controlled by Middleford Clinic and that frontage road to the west. You get streets that close to a main highway, and you have problems that transfer from that intersection out to the main line.
But it was approved with the original development plan, so we're not asking for anything different, we're just asking that road to be finished.
Yeah, so is the frontage road west of Stein Boulevard, and you notice Middleford Clinic took their connection out to Stein Boulevard and moved it further to the south because they knew they were having problems. I have friends that live in the condominiums to the east of Kane Road, and when I have visited them, living on the south side of Eau Claire, I tend to take County Trunk Highway TT or Kane Road to the south, so I don't have to go out of the North Crossing rather than put up with that traffic, trucks, et cetera, et cetera. Mill Run Road is signalized intersection with the North Crossing. It's one of the main connection. It's going to get traffic, be it from all the development to the west of there, which is your development, or the development to the east of here. If the property line would have been, for your development, would have been halfway between Mill Run Road and Kane Road, it would have been your residents adding to that traffic too. So it's a different neighborhood, but still, it's providing access to 312 for both of them. So, and I don't think the traffic's going to be that great. As Ms. Ness said, a two-lane road one lane can handle 1,000 vehicles an hour.
I mean, I don't know what the breakdown is per year or whatever it is, but it's not, it's not just the additional traffic. We are concerned about our children as well, because they do play all over the islands, on the roads. We don't have sidewalks going all the way through the subdivision, so they can't be on the sidewalks all the time. So we are concerned about the children as well as the additional traffic. But I did mention that I'm open if you can tell me another neighborhood who incurs the costs of maintaining a road for another business in Eau Claire. We just feel we shouldn't incur that cost down the road at all, because it's not our business, and no one can really come up with stats to say how long that road will last. And it's only one lane. You come up, you come down, there's an island in the middle. One of my members walked it off today. It's like 14 feet. That's it. So we are concerned about it. We don't want to pay for it down the road. The bottom line, we don't want to pay for it, and we don't want that traffic.
But without parking, 14 feet should be plenty of room for vehicles to get through
Yeah,
there.
they can get through. Yeah, but there's no speed bumps, so if they're speeding and our kids are out, most of the members know they go about 20 miles an hour. I mean, we creep along because we know that the kids are running out all the time. I know you can say, like, keep your kids in, that kind of thing, watch your kids more, but kids are kids. They play all over the neighborhood, and we're worried about that, besides the cost of maintaining a road that we're doing for another business, not for ourselves. We have no problem maintaining that road if it was just our traffic, or if it went all the way through, but you're asking us to maintain a road for other individuals that SCS makes a profit off of. Or they eventually will, probably not at first, but eventually. So we're just asking you what other subdivision in the city you ask them to do that for.
I live 3 blocks east of Stein Boulevard, south of the Elks Club. There are 3 lots off of Stein Boulevard. There are 2 subdivisions east of me that use my street all the time. So technically, I'm paying for them too. But the city assessment process is they pay for the core road. If there's any needed lanes, that goes citywide as opposed to the adjacent property owners.
And you said there's subdivisions, a couple over that? There's subdivisions with single-family homes?
Yes.
this
that
isn't
go
a
past my house.
Yeah, this isn't a subdivision with single-family homes. It's 530 some odd homes.
Well, I probably have 200, 250 homes east of me off of Rossbach Street. They use my street. And I grew up on Birch Street, so I know what traffic is. I rode my bike on Birch Street. Probably shouldn't have as a kid,
Yeah.
but I'm still alive. The kids have to learn to look both ways.
Right.
I know safety is important.
All
I've
right.
taught my kids to do that too, so,
Any
thank you.
questions from any other commissioners? Commissioner Gregor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to the Stonewood Drive, and maybe Ms. Ness can help out with this as well, but it appears that there are 3 different properties that are on the eastern end of that cul-de-sac right now, and that is what I imagine is the barrier toward connecting those Stonewood Drive east to the proposed development. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's one of the barriers. As Mr. Peterson had mentioned too, opening that up and having that east-west connection, I anticipate that more traffic, as does the neighborhood, would use that east-west connection and to get to Mill Run Road if they have to go to the west. That will increase the traffic at the Stonewood Drive and Mill Run Road intersection, as well as the Mill Run Road and US Highway 12 intersection, and that close intersection spacing is of concern.
Any other questions from the commission? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other members of the public who came to speak on this item? Hi.
Hey, good afternoon, or evening, everybody. Sorry, I'll be brief. I got to get the kids to bed. My name is Tim Santine. I also live on Mill Run Road, 4023 Mill Run Road. And apologies for reiterating probably some of the same stuff that Gloria's said. But I just wanted to ask, have you guys been out there? Has anybody actually been on this 12-foot wide serpentine street that's going to handle 400 cars an hour? I just want to make sure, not to be a jerk. I just keep coming back to the traffic flow, but that's not the main thing that I wanted to discuss. One we haven't really talked about, although I was grateful because Sean from the city engineer's office caught me earlier to discuss some of the flooding issues that we have, and I want to make sure that that is addressed among other things, because I discussed it with the city when I was on the board in 2014, and when we met here a couple of years ago, actually over several occasions, to discuss rezoning for the nursing homes, because we had to rezone to have 3 nursing homes within 1,500 feet of each other. I also asked about the flooding problems that we have and continue to have in the park, which right now actually is pretty close to flooding once again. And we've been told several times that it's going to be rectified because we do spend 2 months is maybe a little much, but there's definitely 4 to 5 weeks where a third of the park is underwater and you can't use the trails. And it just seems that we're pushing to do all this rezoning without solving the problems that are there in the first place. And I really would like that developed. I want that developed. Now, am I excited about 536 units in a neighborhood that was originally designed to be about 600 units total that comprised single-family homes, townhomes, condos, apartments? Everybody will tell you about the density issues that we have problems with in the traffic, but the plan to increase this, it's just not what most of the people that bought into the neighborhood were buying into when they moved out here. But again, that's just me nagging. But I'm glad to hear that Sean and the city are working to address some of these drainage issues. But again, I want everybody to be aware that this is something that I've myself have spoken into this microphone on 2 separate occasions to fix this, and it hasn't. Another thing that was touched on just a little bit is the park. It is a nice little park, and I'm not quite sure in the new plans, it's hard to see really what's going on with it, because as it is right now, it is a public park, yes, but there is no public access to it, period. The road on Renee Court, that's a private road, so you can't park there to access the park on the north end there. And where Mill Run currently ends, you know, it just ends. There is not one garbage can in the park. And again, I don't know what the new plan looks like because, you know, it's just so easy to fixate on the highway that's going to run from Kane to Mill Run, if, you know, when this is all set up. Again, I would love to see the neighborhood developed. I really would. But the original plan that actually, thank you for leaving that up. I mean, there are 6, 7 entrances and exits in what this was originally designed to be for, you know, a 500 to 600 unit community, not a 700 or 800 unit community, but 5 to 7 entrances and exits in and out of this neighborhood. And now, with the rezoning plan, there are 2. There are 2. And 536 units is great, but there's only 2 ways for them to get in and out of the neighborhood. And I'm one of those people that apparently has crazy kids that are, you know, unable to look both ways when they cross the street. But that increase in the amount of vehicles going down the street is kind of nuts. And so I would just ask as politely and nicely as I can that if we could just maybe have more access in and out of these neighborhoods so that it'll work, and we're not seeing 50-fold increases in the amount of cars zipping down the street. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Santin, the park, I guess I'm trying to learn more about the park, and maybe Ms. Ness or Mr. Allen can help, but it's owned by the city, but it's still zoned under a planned development, essentially, R2P. And so it's not actually zoned public, and is that why it's not maybe as maintained as our other parks? Because I guess I share that concern about access to this park, if
Yeah.
it is truly a city park, and how maybe this new development can help increase that access and usability. And I do understand that it's not directly abutting it, but it does play a role to connect, I think. But
Mr. Allen.
Again, I apologize, the Parks Department did not weigh in on this proposal, since again, it's existing parkland that's not immediately adjacent to the project, but I'm looking at the aerial photo, there's pedestrian access to it, but I guess that's really all that's available. It is a neighborhood park more than any kind of larger park, so it's simply a neighborhood scale park. Beyond that, again, I can't speak on behalf of the Parks Department in terms of access and maintenance and long-term development plans.
I can add to that a little bit, potentially. There is currently a Safe Routes to Park plan being developed by our Parks group, and there were park assessments completed by neighborhoods and community members for all the parks within the community. Deficiencies were identified, and we will be using this plan to identify issues in parks and lay out a process on how to address different issues in parks. So the items that you noted, I will make sure get into that Safe Routes to Parks plan.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Any other members of the public here to speak on this item tonight? Hi.
Good evening. I'm Judy Mosley. I live at 2230 Trimble Street in Eau Claire, and I am co-chair of the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force. As such, I'm pretty interested in this plan, and I like it and I support it a lot. I did want to, there we go. I did want to point out, this is in your packet, but members in the audience may not have seen it. It talks about what a healthy housing market looks like, and that market includes starter apartments as well as maintenance-free living on either end of starter homes and family homes. And I think that's important to point out that this development includes those apartments and it also includes the maintenance-free living. And those are two very important parts of our healthy housing stock. I think that one of the barriers that developers such as this face is sort of a community mindset that we all have that automatically assumes that homeownership is better than renting. And I'm a realtor, I get it. I make a living by selling people homes. I love homeownership. I think it's a wonderful thing. But I also don't think it's appropriate or necessary or wanted by everybody. Not everyone can afford to own a home. And that affordability is not only in dollars, but also in time and energy. I'm approaching the age where I'm thinking about getting rid of the big family home and downsizing into something where I don't have to shovel sidewalks or mow lawn or, take care of a million things with all of my extra time. And so I understand the value of this kind of housing. I think that rental units are a valuable part of our housing stock. They're a valuable part of our community. And I have to really appreciate when a developer like this is saying, we're going to stick with this. We're not just building this, handing it off to a property manager and leaving town to cash our check. We're building a community center, we're putting a headquarters here, we're doing our own maintenance, we're interacting with our renters all the time. We are on site and we are here for the long haul. I think that is really to be respected, and it's something that I find very, very attractive about this development, that they seem to have a clear intention of becoming a stakeholder in our community, and I want to reward that in any way we can. Now, on the bottom half of this, it talks about the rent rates for this development housing. And that 72.39% is big. It's really huge. We don't see developments in the Eau Claire area where over 70% of the housing is meant to be affordable for our workforce. And like I said during the last hearing, the number of people in this particular neighborhood that work at low-wage jobs is enormous. And so it fits that in this neighborhood with so many minimum wage and just over minimum wage workers, that we should have housing stock of good quality that's well-maintained and that is affordable. I will continue to talk to the developer and encourage them to perhaps in this development or in future developments, I would like them to think about adding some of the lower income levels. But boy, I tell you, I can't walk away from 72% of a development being workforce housing. I think that is really impressive, and I absolutely support it, and I encourage you to support it too. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you. Any other members of the public who came to speak here tonight on this item? Hello.
Good evening. Sean Bohan, 1504 Sherwin Avenue, Eau Claire. I didn't jump ship. I'm not an engineer for the city now, but I am the Sean that ended up talking with a gentleman about the stormwater. It's certainly a concern with our client and myself, and trying to make sure that we're getting the stormwater through the subdivision in a safe manner. So we're certainly looking at the plans that were completed originally in 2004 and then also taking into account the proposed development and making sure that we're passing this through. So it is something that is on the top of our list, and we'll make sure that we address it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was just the traffic, and Ms. Ness had discussed, about the traffic being routed to the north, taking the cul-de-sac and bringing it through and possibly causing some of those issues at Mill Run Road and Highway 312. The other thing is we have to end up sending that to the DOT because we're platting it and it goes up against a state highway. I'm thinking that they probably won't allow that connection to begin with, just because they would know that there's probably some issues that's going to end up being at that intersection. What you have up on the screen right now ends up being the original plan that was, I think, 2003 and maybe modified in 2004. There isn't a connection in the north. That was never being proposed. In addition, the amount of exits out of this subdivision ended up being 3. There was 2 that were actually out on Kane Road. Unfortunately, we're not able to get another access. That's a county road. We're limited with the amount of access points that we can end up getting. But there's just 3, entrances and exits out of it with the approved plan from 2004. I think what we end up having in front of you is a great plan. When the single-family development ends up actually developing in the future and stuff, you can end up having another connection that ends up happening, depending on how that layout ends up being. But it'll certainly end up connecting, to the south and to the west. So there will be another opportunity that there's another exit that ends up actually going out to like North Town Hall Road. And those are just the 2 items that I wanted to touch on, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I have a couple, maybe.
Okay.
I remember having conversations about stormwater runoff in other developments that have been before the Plan Commission. And I've raised this question before. Does the fact that we're going to be adding storm sewer and roads with, gutters and so on, will just the fact that those things are going to exist where they didn't before help with the stormwater runoff?
When we put the stormwater facilities in, yes. It does definitely help convey it and take it to different locations. And then you put it in the stormwater facilities, and then you can end up metering out essentially the rate so it doesn't end up flooding downstream areas. In this case, you end up having a good part of this development actually ends up flowing to the existing facility that's currently flooding to the existing pond. There's not much for interruption. I think there's maybe one depression and stuff that's out there, but the grades mostly break and go to like the north and the west. There's not a lot that actually ends up going out towards Kane Road. And if it does go out on Kane Road, it goes basically in that northwest corner where that commercial property is owned by others. So with that being said, yes, some of it's going to be taken away. Some of the area that actually flows to that pond and stuff is actually going to be taken away. We're not utilizing that stormwater facility, the existing one, for this development at all. We'll have our own stormwater facilities, and we will end up taking it out and discharging, in the Kane Road area or working with the city, the place that it naturally goes to. But it will not end up being to that stormwater facility.
And I've been looking at the the terrain map on Google Map here. It looks like this new development is actually in a lower, topographically lower elevation than the existing development is. Am I looking at that right?
There's portions of it. You have your high spot and stuff that ends up being along the south. There's kind of a ridge line that kind of flows.
And a little bit to the east.
So, yeah.
But the majority of it looks like it's lower.
I don't have this stuff in front of me, so.
All right.
But yeah, we're ultimately our discharge points will end up being, located in that northwest or northeast corner of this site.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Bohan.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public here to speak on this item? I see none. So, before we start discussion on the item, I'll see if there is a motion and a second.
Thank you. I'll move approval with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Peterson.
I'll second the result.
All right. Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Chairman Larson. I simply want to say this has been discussed so thoroughly, and I really appreciate the citizen involvement to really bring their issues forward in a time when they can be dealt with, as opposed to later on when they're being built in. I appreciate the concessions that have been made, which brings us more closely in line with the comprehensive plan. I just have enormous compassion for the community. This has happened in other developments that are really starting to take off, where you start with the large residential and start to build in the multifamily, and it's really quite a shock to the residents. But I think in our conversation, we did overlook the fact that only that 70% of that traffic increase is going to go to Kane Road, and all of the original construction will begin on the Kane Road side. So I can only expect that there will be conversations and modifications that benefit the development and benefit that neighborhood. But I'm definitely in support of this development. I'm really grateful to have developers like this interested in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can support this as well. I do think there's a lot of work left to do with, obviously, we have more things to come in front of us as we dig down to the details. We have that traffic impact analysis done, and I think it is really important to the fact that it includes bike and pedestrian and transit implications for this, because this really is going to be transformative for bike and pedestrian movement, and also safety concerns too. So I do think that with the Kane Road reconstruction in the next few years, obviously that's going to be impactful, and but I do want to make sure that this commission and it sounds like city staff has a good understanding of what is ahead and what a lot of the work that needs to be done. But and obviously there's going to be work for the neighborhood to work through these issues too, that may emerge as this whole area of town really changes. So, but yeah, I think I can support it at this point and just kind of stay on top of it as a growing part of our community. So,
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll just make one comment related to the traffic increase. I know that so with the cost of the development, the developer incurs, correct me if I'm wrong, the cost of any changes that need to be made to accommodate the development that they're building. As far as wear and tear on the road, any speculation that the road might need to be repaired sooner than it would otherwise have is difficult to predict. But I can say that every development that occurs in the city of Eau Claire, whether it's single-family residential or high-density apartments or townhouses or twin homes, every one of them will increase the amount of traffic going to that location. And the surrounding neighborhoods are all affected by that. It's just part of what we live with is living in an urban area like this, or in a rural area for that matter. So I will be supporting this development. I think that 70% workforce housing is a good thing for our community in terms of what this development will bring. I also want to note that this development started much bigger. Even 2 years ago, there was another proposal here, which was a much bigger development than what we've had here. And in the process of taking public input and discussion on the Plan Commission and on City Council, and accommodations by the developer, I think we've come to a place where we've got a better development than we had when it first came to us. So I'm happy to support it. Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that passes. Congratulations. Item number 2 on the agenda is a public hearing for recommendation to City Council to rezone from TR1A to C3P and R3P, an area on the west end of Lorch Avenue, south of Highway I-94. Mr. Allen.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Again, before you this evening is another fairly large-scale residential development along with some commercial components. This is, again, a request to rezone properties located south side of I-94 at the western terminus of Lorch Avenue. It's currently zoned TR1A. And the applicant is looking to rezone it to C3P and R3P. C3P is the portion on the north side along I-94, and the R3P is the portion on the south, which is actually adjacent to Lowe's Creek. The developer, the applicant, is looking to also, as part of this, adopt the general development plan, which again would include the commercial development and the multifamily residential development. They're also looking to have a 4-lot certified survey map, CSM, approved as well. So it's kind of a 3-part request here before you this evening. Again, with this, show the area of public notification. Again, quite a bit is actually located in the town of Washington, and only to the east there do you see some property located within the city. It's Florian Gardens to the east on the north side, and actually County Fairgrounds to the east on the south side of Lorch. Here's an aerial photo showing the 2 relative parcels. And this shows a little bit more clearly the CSM division as requested. On the north side, they're looking at 3 commercial lots, from smallest to largest to be 2 acres, 3.35 acres, and 4.63 acres. More specifically, going from east to west, it's the 4.63 is lot 1, 2 acres is lot 2, and then 3.5 is lot 3. And then the balance would be the residential area on the south side of the proposed Lorch Avenue extension. That would be just over 30 acres in size. And provided in your staff reports, provided some zoning analysis as provided by the applicant. Again, the majority information as provided is simply narrative in nature. Proposed residential area on that south side would have approximately 13.7 acres of developable area, and it would preserve the balance of that 30 acres, so 16.3 acres, as passive open space, primarily along Lowe's Creek on the south end. The residential development would propose to be a mix of 8 to 10 buildings, ranging from 12 to 75 units per building. Units would consist of everything from studio, 1 and 2 bedrooms, and along with some that would have direct entry. Applicant states that they are providing or will be providing a portion dedicated to workforce housing. They provide some more information in their application. Proposed density, again, would be up to 360 units. Using the buildable area of that 13.7 acres. This is a density of over 26 units per acre. I provided the information here from the zoning code that allows for an increase of 25% in this proposed zoning district based on findings that the Plan Commission would have to review and consider here this evening. The maximum density for R3 is 21 units per acre. Again, the applicant is providing for 26 units per acre, which is within that 25% increase, but again, would have to be meeting the plan development standards as provided for on page 40 of the PDF, page 2 of the staff report. 10 different categories there. Again, the submitted general development plan unfortunately has lacked the detail necessary for staff and likely the commission to approve the density increase, but hopefully the applicant can provide some additional information even yet this evening for your consideration. Along with that, again, staff has indicated to the applicant as well in previous discussions and communications that the project needs to include a variety of housing types, densities, and building configurations. Again, they've provided for, in narrative fashion, some variety as they've identified 8 to 10 buildings, a range of 12 to 75 units per building, with a variety of unit sizes. But again, staff just has not been given any additional detail beyond those narrative statements. Again, hopefully the applicant will be able to provide some additional site layout information even tonight, but again, that's not anything that was provided in advance of the meeting for staff to provide any analysis for you in advance of tonight's meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leah to talk about the engineering aspects of the project.
Thank you. From the engineering side of things, the streets, the Lorgia Avenue to the east of the proposed development has a rural cross-section right now. It is anticipated within the next 5 years, or in the 5-year CIP, that would be improved to have a city section with curb and gutter, city cross-section, and sidewalks as well, or multi-use trail, to have a connection to the trail along 93. So the proposed cross-section for the development would include curb and gutter to match into the improvements that are anticipated along Lorgia Avenue to the east. The traffic for this location, as Mr. Allen had mentioned earlier, will vary with the proposed commercial business development and the residential side of things. As things develop there, as more solid numbers are provided, we'd ask that a traffic impact analysis be completed for the site, as we're anticipating more than 100 trips are going to be developed or generated during the peak hour. And that's really our trigger, that we ask a traffic impact analysis be done to the state standards. Again, with this being close to State Trunk Highway, we'd have the WISDOT review team looking at the TIA as well. The water main for this area currently is of adequate size, similar situation for the sanitary, adequate depth for the majority of the development. At the far west end of the development, there may need to be a lift station to help utilize the sanitary system. The stormwater, we require the normal calculations and detention facilities on site and make sure that the stormwater is adequately sized. And the grading on this site, there are some spots where there are some steeper slopes, and if there is to be any land disturbance within those areas, we'd need approval of work on those steep slope areas. With that, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for staff? Commissioner Peterson.
With the exhibit that was up there previously, that one, it shows dashed lines for proposed Lorch Avenue going all the way to the west property line. Yet on the certified survey, it stops at Lot 3. Is there any need to extend that to the west property line because of the properties west of here that may need access to Lorch also?
There could be potential for annexation to the property to the west, correct?
Even if it's not annexed?
Right, yeah, currently it is in the town of Washington. I see what you're saying, it's a little faded on this drawing. Yeah, we would recommend that it be extended all the way to the far western end of the proposed project in one fashion or another. I'm not sure, exactly where a cul-de-sac would terminate, or, it'd simply be, cul-de-sac, as you see with Flooring Gardens, it's cul-de-sac and then some, right-of-way dedication, but not physical roadway, perhaps.
And one other question, if I may, probably to Mr. Allen also. On the certified survey, which is page 50, it shows the floodplain limits. To me, it's approximately a third of the property south of Lorch Avenue is undevelopable because it would be in the floodplain. So therefore, isn't the density much greater because they can only use 2/3 of that property for development?
Trying to get caught up here. My computer's slower than me at the moment. So you're identifying the floodplain.
I'm on the
limits.
certified survey map, which is page 50 in our packet.
And again, yeah, I'm going off of the, thank you.
That's it
Brian.
there.
The, yes, I'm going off of the information that was provided in the narrative from the applicant. So I might defer that question to them to better distinguish between the two.
Okay.
But it appears as though, again, they're saying 16.3 undevelopable and 13.7 developable. So hard to say just based on the visual there what that would be broken up into those two different pieces. But
Okay.
again, I'll defer to the applicant to clarify that.
So should the density be based on the entire property or that which is buildable?
That which is buildable is what we utilize for
Okay.
the density.
That it?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the, Commissioner Brennan?
Yeah, am I missing something, or is the only exit from the development is going to be Lorch Avenue, correct?
You're correct, just through, using Lorch Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? All right, is the applicant here?
Good evening, folks.
Hi.
I'm Mark Erickson with Everyday Survey and Engineering, and I guess I got two things. I'm going to hand out the much-awaited development plan. I guess I'm going to kind of work a little bit on the engineering, which I'm best at, if you don't mind me saying, and that is Mrs. Ness's report. We agree with everything at TIA will be needed. The infrastructure is apropos to handle this. Our street section, as we design it moving forward, will be up to the suggestions of the city, a 32-foot wide street, a 12-foot bike path asphaltic trail system on the south side, and a traditional 5-foot wide concrete on the north side. And like Ms. Ness talked about, due to the proximity, vertically speaking, the existing sanitary sewer that's in the Lorch cul-de-sac on the southwest side of Florian's Drive, let's call it, that ultimately does drain north under the interstate. That elevation is dictating what we can service sanitary sewer-wise in a gravity feeding system. She referenced the westerly portions. That is a true statement. The westerly portions would have to implement some type of a lift station, whether it's a size for the whole, everything to the west, or if it's more of an individual building basis, some type of a pumping mechanism to get that up to the proper elevation to get to the gravity feed system. Now, I know you just got that package, and there are 4 pages there. The first 2 pages are kind of overlay. We do have the intentions of developing this, and the developer, Mr. Hagan, is with us today as one of the 3 members of the team of H&K. And our goal is to answer Mr. Peterson's question, why are we not taking the road all the way to the west boundary? And that is because there's a point where we cannot service it by gravity, and so those would be future phases when the dictation of demand and all that would say, let's get into a lift station design, as well as we'll probably start off with phase 1 being lot 1, lot 2 on the north side, and then 2 of the buildings as they're identified on that plan sheet as building 1 and building 2. Most of this road construction on phase 1 will commence, if not all of it, will commence in 2020. And then we'll have to kind of watch how things happen. But we have made special provisions for call it a community-sized lift station to happen on our east boundary, on our private property. Through a developer's agreement, when that time comes, we'll work with the city engineering department and planning for that matter, and identify the appropriate sizing and such for that system, sir. So, our agreement with the engineering report, a little bit about the terminus as where it's located right now on the CSM and on our phase plans. The next topic is density. Very valid point, sir. We have 30.41 acres south of Lorch. Only 13.7 of them are developable. So when we take 13.7 times 21, which is an R3 standard district form, we're at 288 units allowed for that subdivision or that land mass being occupied by units. When we look at the 25% increase, and I apologize, engineers don't make that many mistakes with numbers. I put in 360, should have been in the report, should have been in our narrative of 350, which would have been under the maximum density of the 25% plan unit development uptick. 360 is over, 356 is allowed by the 25% increase. As we have laid it out here for you folks, we are looking at a little different. The more we sit and look at the land and how not to maybe disturb such a beautiful backdrop towards Lois Creek and keep it preserved, the aesthetics of the topographic features and the trees, and utilizing our backyard or the backyard of this property as a recreational space, which will be close to a 1-to-1 ratio of rec space versus development space. We have trimmed the number of buildings back from 8 to 10 to, as we're seeing right now, 4. We have decreased the density to be in the proximity of about 230 to 260 total. So we're even under the R3 district, no extra 25% for the planned development tick-up. The lie of the land, the beauty of the land, we just don't see fit to try to jam it all in there. Let's be honest, okay, folks? It does fall off. Ms. Ness brought up a point. It does fall off beautifully down to the creek. Very great passive space. I've walked it before. As well as this is going to be a very nice community. I truly believe that. Mr. Hagan and his team are into very respectably looking multifamily developments, whether it's here in the Eau Claire area or up in the cities area. And they have the insight and the intuition to bring forth a quality product to this community again. I guess I can stop for a little bit if we want to talk a little bit about the engineering aspects of things, folks, and then I can kind of get into the zoning analysis if we would like to.
Why don't you go ahead and continue? We'll do questions when you're done.
Okay, thank you. I may step back in the engineering and IE planning a little bit to address an additional question that was raised to Mr. Allen about the connectivity. Lorch as a whole, and I addressed it in the narrative, probably will never see another street on the west end. Lois Creek is right there. The topography is challenging to cross that. So whether it's this parcel or the next parcel that is due west, that's in the town of Washington, will all come forth eastbound to Lordson 93 at that intersection. So that's what I know there. It's probably I know planners don't like it and street people don't like it for that matter. Engineering is, there's no network available for us to really truly connect into in a rational manner. So as I continue on with the zoning analysis aspect of the things, I want to be a little bit conscious of your time. And when we look at the topic A, B, and C, A, we already discussed that water, storm, and sanitary sewer are a good thing out there as a whole. The sanitary sewer, we obviously know about the little lift station probability in the future. Parking, I call it parking because as you're seeing now, and granted, it is the first time, parking is going to be a 1-to-1 underground and a one or better above ground per unit. So for instance, it's a for instance, say there is a 75-unit building. There'll be underground parking of 75 count, and there'll also be surface parking in the adjacent front yard of at least 75 stalls. My layout that I have provided there with the architectural help on the building is to allow very ease of flow through the parking lots in the front. Ambulance and fire truck accessibility has been accounted for. Maybe some minor tweaks on that as we go through it. We want to work with the PD and the FD to allow them to access the site in a timely and easy fashion. So. And that kind of spills over to another item on this, and the rec space. I kind of touched it briefly. We're essentially a 1-to-1. We've got about 6.7 acres of developed land on the northern limits, and then we've got about 6-some odd acres of nice, passive, beautiful area on the south side. Schools were not too far away from across the interstate, Meadowview, and then we also would be, these folks would be going to, if they did have child-age children, south and then ultimately Memorial. So one of the things on B is it's going to negatively impact the area. My guess, and it's an innocent and humble one, is no, it's probably going to be a positive. One for, well, let's face it, the car lots. All of a sudden, the car lots have a lot more people kicking tires maybe because they were walking up and down. Or the Chaos Water Park, the Jump House and Action City. Granted, Florian is not open to the public, but there is some pretty sincere and earnest plans on the commercial lots on the north side of different commercial entities occupying those places that would be in harmony with this multifamily development. The orientation of the units to achieve a high level of privacy, yes, we're going to be doing that. That's part of the ultimate goal. We're working with Collage Architects out of the Minneapolis area that they do a very outstanding job from what I've seen of their materials. The massing of the structures as we show them, they will be an underground parking lot that is potentially going to be tucked under the building completely, or the south wall will be finished down to the ground, depending on the topography on some of the sections. And then there'll be 2 or 3 floors above that. So you're coming in on the north side, you're going to be coming on essentially the first floor, then you got second and a potential for a third on some cases, and then there'll be an underground garage that won't be seen from the street, so it'd be really dressed up on the front with that carport area there. So we are working on finalizing some of the architectural plans and the renderings and stuff like that, to the point I know it's a cat and mouse game. What do you have first, all those drawings done or get some approvals process going through? We are where we're at right now, folks. I apologize for some of that. I'm going to move on to 4 is these folks, Mr. Hagen, Mr. Hagen's father, another Hagen, and then Mr. Krummeyer, they have the desire to make this very tastefully and heavily landscaped. They want this to be a curb appealing area. They want it to be somewhere where people want to go home and essentially enjoy visiting their friends. We talked about the walking trails. The goal is then maintain the site's natural beauty. I already touched on that. And I guess with all due respect, number 10 on the last one, the overall project exceeds the standards established in this chapter for design and functional appearance. I think, and I think there could be two sticks there, maybe even three for that matter, and two of them rightfully so to me. One is the misstatement of the 360 units. I apologize again. The real number is that 230 to 260 number, folks, okay? And the other two, well, the next one, that's my fault, I'll call it, and that is finalizing this plan that you were seeing any earlier than we did. We were working diligently with the architect to figure it all out, to try to put something, a good foot forward. One, because it was different than our narrative of 8 to 10 buildings, ranging in scale and scope of units provided per building, as well as these folks really want to provide a natural scenic beauty of Lois Creek, and to try to leave it, we could have jammed more buildings in, a second tier down, but then the first tier people would look at the second tier down, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory manner, but then they start to look at roofs, and that's not what they want to do, okay? So we're trying to open it up to give that southern beauty view of what's there already. And then the third thing is the transition between this neighborhood. This is not a neighborhood that has a whole lot of, it's a big chunk of ground, 30 acres, 13 of it's only usable. We don't have the girth and the depth to the south, the transition from a multifamily to a medium density multifamily to a low and downward. We don't have the horizontal spacing. The topographic limitations don't allow us to do that. As I laid out in our narrative, this being an R3P, immediately adjacent to some very valuable, perceivably C3P on the north side that has beautiful interstate vision, sits really well, and is a very nice continuation of what's already there. We see that transition, when that time comes, when the market dictates, obviously, and who knows who when, the transition actually happening off this property to the westerly land. And a potential is, for instance, maybe there's a 12-plex or an 8-plex, and then it goes into a 4-plex, and then maybe go down. This is a permanent dead end. So these people are going to, I feel, and my innocence, I'm not a market expert like a realtor or anything, but it's going to be a dead end forever. It's going to be a tranquil, peaceful dead end as a whole for through traffic and stuff like that. Not like anything that is maybe available for multifamily in this area right now. So I guess I kind of went through the 10 bullet points. We agree with the engineering analysis. TIA is ordered. It's a matter of essentially pulling the trigger, working with the city on the stormwater aspects. You know, I think we're sitting really good, folks, and I'm here to entertain any of your questions, comments, or concerns as a whole.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the Commissioner? Commissioner Peterson.
Yes, thank you for your explanation that the ratio of buildable is on buildable land and not the floodplain land too. And secondly, my comment with respect to future Lorch Avenue is I'm not after building Lorch Avenue to the west property line at this point, but when the property is divided into the lots, that 66-foot strip of land should be dedicated to the west property line. It does need to be constructed there, but otherwise that land to the west is undevelopable with no access.
May I address him? And I thank you very much, Mr. Peterson, for that. Yes, there will be a connection point. I don't think any of the fine planning staff here would allow that to happen. There is a little bit of that anomaly as we perhaps, and I say perhaps because we don't know exactly how we want to wiggle the road right there, okay? So we don't want to put that full penetration there right this second. The other aspect is dedication would be intimate when there's a potential of splitting that lot 3 into maybe a multiple lots, and we'd have to be back for a plat process to cut those lots up and then dedicate that right away. We will, Mr. Hagan and his development team will provide an access point to the west, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from the Commissioner? Oh, Commissioner Brennel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With all due respect, why did you rush this forward to this meeting and not wait 2 weeks or 4 weeks further? I mean, you've done a good job of trying to articulate what this is going to look like and how the roads are going to be and the beauty of the development, but in effect, we've got very little here.
I hear you, sir, and I appreciate that. We've been working on this, and I say we because with city staff and us, it's been February since we've been talking about it. We've had some changes in some elements of the site, and then working with the architect to try to make sure we're getting the right fit of how things are going to lay out. So perceptually, is it rushed? Perceptually, yes. Is it in good faith behind the scenes rushed? I can't say that truthfully, sir. It's not rushed. I understand you are getting, per se, the first and best look at it right now. We will be back for a planning development site plan layout when that time does come forth. Our goals are today is to, and I know that I respect what you said, rezoning, as well as a CSM with a right-of-way dedication on that. That would be part of what we're after today. Now, in a meeting with the city, and I'm not getting off the hook by this statement, we had an option that a narrative would be apropos for this scope and scale. Did we hit a home run with the narrative? No. Is it different than what you're seeing? Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. In a lot of ways, better. A lot of ways better than what our narrative says.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank you. I would agree with Commissioner Brenholt, but I have a couple of questions, and I'd like to ask a follow-up if I could for a couple of them. Are there neighbors to be consulted?
Mr. Allen showed the radial map of the rezoning, and it, I'll be honest, does not cross I-94. It goes up to the northern right-of-way. The neighbors to the east, the Florian Gardens and some of those commercial businesses are static. As far as the west, that gentleman was noticed, he owns that land. I believe that gentleman sold the land to the original owner, the YMCA. And so he may be in the audience, I'm not certain, ma'am, but out of any more than the city's mailing and our proximity to the immediate adjacent neighborhood, let's call it on the north side of the interstate, and being so disconnected, there was no neighborhood meeting or anything like that, ma'am, and like I said, the developing team has had conversations with the adjacent commercial businesses, and their thumbs up when you're going to start digging, but that's not here nor there, ma'am. So.
Thank you. So consistent with our comprehensive plan, what is your initial plan for diversity of housing types?
Great question.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. There is going to be an allocation of the workforce type housing, ma'am, to the extent of percentage. I don't know that I can, maybe Mr. Hagan can speak on that. I know that it is in the works. There is going to be a nice variety of the workforce all the way up to the market value in these places, though, and that I do know, but I unfortunately can't tell you 73% like the last group. I can't tell you that. I don't know. I know that it's in the works to being done, though.
So I just want you to know that of course, is a serious concern for myself, given our critical need in our community. I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier, but in this area, we have many of the same low-wage and high-employment workers, Fleet Farm, Action City, servers at Florian Gardens, and others. So that is a concern for me, and I personally would not be comfortable moving this entire plan forward at this time. I hear about your intentions, but that would not be enough for me. So I'm just letting you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really obviously appreciate having this now, and obviously the public has not been able to see it yet. So that's a concern for me, but I had a specific question about the building on the south, the future building 3, and the proximity to the creek. It seems to be the one that is kind of incongruous with the others in the sense that it's much closer to the creek and maybe goes further into the forest. So do you think you could describe the intention behind that future building 3 and how you're going to preserve, I guess, the natural area with, and still be able to construct a building like that?
Thank you, good question. Building 3, future Building 3 and future Building 4, they cannot come on board without a lift system or a type of pumping system to get it up there. Back to your question, Building 3 is immediately adjacent to the city's stormwater management pond system. So yes, it is intruding a little bit on the native vegetation, native beauty right there, but we were trying to make it as least obtrusive. And in reality is that area at one time, and I've been told by a general contractor, was excavated out. And that material was used to build one of the adjacent roadways in the neighborhood, basically, sir. So it has already lost some of it. Its foliage is nowhere near natural as well. So it's, yes, there are going to be some mature trees cut down all that area, no doubt about it. When Building 3, future Building 3 happens, things might change a little bit. It may be a little different configuration per se, but that's what the thought was there, is it's essentially tucked against semi-quasi developed area being the stormwater regional facility there, and it's very, at least the nut of, pardon the French, the majority of the land to the south and to the west is still going to be very undamaged or left alone. The proximity to the creek, we did have a we did have a wetlands guru on the site. It is way above the floodplain elevation, so its proximity to the stream is still quite a good healthy distance away, as well as we'll practice all the city required and fully acknowledge stormwater management practices on said development in that area, or the whole thing for that matter.
I may have a follow-up question. So you described a bit of the potential future residential even further to the west, and also just all the different amenities to the east, more commercial in nature. And then we've talked a little bit about the neighborhood across I-94. I guess one of the things that comes to mind for me, as someone who really tries to pay attention to bike and pedestrian connectivity in particular, is that this may, and maybe Ms. Ness would be able to help answer this question, but it seems like the TIA, this traffic impact analysis, should also consider some sort of bike and pedestrian bridge across 94 to connect to the rest of the city of Eau Claire, perhaps justified by this additional development. And something like that would require, potentially an easement through one of the commercial lots as proposed, and somehow working with the state and federal government on a bridge. And I don't know how to pay for such a thing, but it's kind of it makes me think, when we're talking about this scale of development, about that type of thing. What I guess comes to mind for you when we're talking about this level of development and that kind of bike and pedestrian infrastructure beyond the trail that you're proposing on Lorch Avenue itself?
I'm gonna ask you, just not to be mean, but a rhetorical question, what is crossing from south of 94 to the north side right now? Is it an asphalt bike path?
Yeah, there is on Highway 93 on the east side.
That's what, okay.
So that's a pretty big distance. If someone wants to go to school at Meadowview, for example, they would have to be bused versus, otherwise they could potentially walk.
I thank you for that information. I drive down there a lot, and my eyes are on other things, unfortunately. I apologize, and thank you for that information. So I guess it would come back to potentially looking at something with the TIA. We are providing what Ms. Ness wanted us to on the south side, a 12-foot wide asphalt bike path, which is substantial in size, let's face it, folks. We do Altoonas, and they're 10. Some are even 8. So we are trying to make that connectivity for pedestrians and bike path. Now, as you go down to the county park, my understanding is, and confirm this if you would, there is a connection from the county park across the river to the south side to the Lois Creek Park. Is that a bridge?
Sure. There are some mountain bike and pedestrian-only trails.
And that's fine. That's what we thought. So we were trying to tie the 12-foot wide asphalt bike path would eventually be extended to the county park and then provide additional rec space for these tenants through the Lois Creek Park. I agree, Mr. Garrett, that when we get to the TIA and we can point some emphasis to that type of traffic, bike and pedestrian, and see what we have to work with the team, the engineering team, to figure out a potential solution. I think you were correct in saying getting a pedestrian bridge over, like per se Menominee maybe have done, that's a feat to get it over the interstate like that, sir.
Any other questions from the commission? I have one. Do you think that if this was postponed for, say, a month, you would be prepared to come back with, more specifics about what your development is?
I feel that's a reasonable statement, sir, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions. Thanks.
Certainly. Thank you for your time tonight, folks.
Is there anyone from the public who came to speak on this item tonight? Thank you. Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gunnar Hagen. I am one of the members of HK Development, and we're just proposing this development just due to the fact that, everything seems to be moving down that 93 corridor, and we just feel that it presents one heck of an opportunity for multifamily being next to the commercial, the interstate, and we don't feel that single family would be the best suited for that area. We've been in the rental business here in Eau Claire for 20 plus years. Ironically, we used to manage Westridge Park, which was on the ticket tonight. And we were in the student rental. Currently, I have approximately 100 units in Eau Claire that we own and manage. Another partner owns and manages multi-units up in the cities. So we're very familiar with multifamily residences and taking care of those. We own and manage everything, so we don't sub it out to a property management company. And as far as moving to this development, we don't have the numbers for workforce units yet, but we are working on that as well. I mean, that is in our minds to suit the Eau Claire need for that. And then with it incorporating next to the county park, we figured, what a better opportunity to have an on-site park for residents to facilitate in that matter. And then I guess we're just excited to get something going on this project. That's kind of why we did rush through it. But if you require another month to get things going, I think we can get that taken care of.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any members of the public who came to speak on this item tonight? Hello again.
Hi, Judy Mosley again. I'll keep this brief because we've gone over a lot of the needs stuff. One of the things I did notice on the map for this project that was included in the packet was there are a development south of this property that is not immediately adjacent. And I bring that up simply because we found out through the previous plan with Swiderski just how much non-adjacent neighbors can care about what is happening in a development. But I worry about the lack of detail in these plans. I would like to be able to support it because it does include in the narrative some mentions of affordability, and workforce housing, but it kind of feels like it was put in as an afterthought, that it's not an integral part of the plan, because most of the narrative describes luxury housing. And then there's a brief sentence that says it will have a portion dedicated to workforce housing. Later in another paragraph, it says workforce housing is commonly targeted at essential workers in a community, i.e. police officers, firemen, teachers, nurses, medical personnel. And that shows me a decided lack of understanding of what workforce housing truly is. I guess my recommendation to the Plan Commission is that you do delay it in order to give the developer a little more time to flesh out those plans, as well as to give the public a chance to see those plans. And perhaps, at least I know that the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force would be happy to meet with the developer to offer any expertise we might, as well as I'm sure the Chippewa Valley Affordable Housing Task Force would also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you. Any other members of the public who came to speak on this tonight? I see none. So I will look to the commission for a motion. I think we've been through this before. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Branholm.
Yeah, I'll move postponement at this time.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And I think based on your motion, we would just postpone until they come back when you're ready. I know, but you didn't postpone to a time certain, so it's on them to come back when you're prepared. All right. All those in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a second.
I should have a discussion. My mistake.
Thank you. I think Robert's rules will tell us that we first need, before we can move forward, a motion for approval and a second, and then we can entertain other motions.
Yeah, I was going to mention that at the beginning. We will go ahead and do that. So we'll set aside your motion. And I'll clarify that because this is going to come up again, I think. But is there a motion on the item?
I will move for approval of this item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. So now is the time for discussion, and if there's a motion to postpone, we'll entertain that.
I'll move postponement at this time.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
When are we voting? Which motion?
We're voting on the motion to postpone. Is there discussion on that motion?
Could I discuss the first motion? Not the motion for
Yes, you may.
postponement? Thank you. Even though it looks like this may get postponed, I'm actually in support of this rezoning. I'm impressed with what plans I've seen so far, and I think we're going to see more. We're going to see a site development plan that is going to need approval. This development along Lorch Avenue is inevitable, but I like their attention to the natural beauty that is behind this development, and I'm impressed with that, and I think that's very important, excuse me, in this area. As far as affordable housing, I think I'm all for it, and I believe that we need to focus a lot of our attention on that. But I do think every project that comes through here does not necessarily have to provide for affordable housing. I think there's space for luxury housing as well. So I'm supportive of this project and this rezoning. It looks like depending on how we vote here, we will probably be looking at it again. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think you've demonstrated why we have to have the motion on the item before we have a motion to postpone. I apologize for that confusion. I think we do have before us the motion to postpone. So if you wish not to postpone, then obviously your vote would be no when we bring that vote up. Okay?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Any other discussion on this item or on the motion to postpone?
Mr. Chair, just point of clarification.
Yes.
The next Plan Commission meeting is 3 weeks from tonight. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of extended time before the next meeting. Just
Okay,
FYI.
that's fine. As the motion stands, we didn't postpone to a time certain, so whenever they're ready to come back, we're ready to accept their application. So-
Just FYI, since this is the only meeting here this month, just wanted 3 weeks before the next meeting, not the customary 2.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say that, yeah, I'm excited to continue to see this project, be more detailed, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far, but I do think the public maybe needs more time for this because this has not been a part of a packet from the Plan Commission, and maybe it'll be a little different when we see it again, but overall, I think it's something that I could support. I think there's definitely some details that I need to process through myself, so I'll need some additional time, just as maybe the developers would too, so, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I see none. So our vote is on whether to postpone this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, let's do a raise of hands. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. So that motion passes, and we'll see you next time. Item number 3 is a public discussion for approval by Plan Commission of a site plan for the Farrell Addition at 2315 Western Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 3 on your agenda, on the map as well, on the north side of Eau Claire. The applicant is Advanced Engineering Concepts. It's a parcel that's 5.03 acres. It's currently for Farrell warehouse storage. They're proposing a 4,460 square foot storage fence located along the north side and east of the site. The addition includes some area for concrete and some area for gravel. The gravel will need to be waived by the Plan Commission tonight, and the standards are in your packet. This is what the storage fence looks like. I would say it's a large carport for storage, really. The site is located on the east side of Western Avenue, south of North Crossing, west of Hastings Way. There is some single-family existing homes along the west side. You can see in this picture where the storage area would be going is actually where they have a large storage area currently. The site plan also shows a 7,200 square foot warehouse building that would be a part of the approval as well. Exterior lighting is noted as wall packs on the front and side of the buildings. The existing parking lot and employee parking area will remain the same, along with deliveries and customer area as well. The landscape and green area will be noted as the same as well, except where they're putting the concrete and gravel. Grading and drainage is noted in the report, along with the public utilities, traffic, and transit. There's a few conditions that they need to meet before final approval. With that, there's a narrative as well provided by the applicant. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions with this proposed site plan.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you. Is the applicant here? Welcome back.
Good evening. Taking a look at the conditions, we don't have any objection. I guess the one thing that we are looking for is the gravel storage area. It is fenced in on the north side, and it is fenced in along the east side. So visually, trying to look into it, it's not something that you can end up seeing. Plus, it's protected from Western Avenue with the existing building that ends up being there. Other than that, we don't have any other comments, and we're just here to answer any questions.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
This item is a public discussion, so at this point, we will see if there's a motion from the commission. Commissioner Peterson.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Brenholt. Is there any discussion? I'm getting ahead of myself. Commissioner Peterson.
My motion is with the storage area being gravel, in that it is fulfilling a requirement, and that is an allowed use for gravel.
Okay. Is that acceptable?
And my second would include that as well.
All right. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. So we have none. So congratulations. We'll move to item number 4, which is a public discussion for approval by the Plan Commission for a site plan at Wolf Ridge Manufacturing, 4650 Anderson Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Again, this is item number 4, far northeast corner of the map and the city limits here, east of the Chippewa Valley Regional Airport. And show here a little bit better here. West side of Anderson Road and south of residential property. The applicant is requesting approval of the site plan 12,000 square foot building for Wolf Ridge Manufacturing. The property is currently zoned I-1, which does allow the proposed land use of manufacturing. The current existing land use is, this is vacant building, this is vacant property as a whole. Just for a little bit of background, the property owner applicant has done some grading and some clearing already of that property. I've received several phone calls and emails, obviously, of neighbors who are concerned about future development of the property. The applicant, Wolf Ridge Manufacturing, did hold a neighborhood meeting with the Sundet Neighborhood Association last month and discussed the proposed project at that time. You can see here the proposed layout. Actually, let me jump ahead to the aerial photo here. Here you can see the lot itself south of Sundet Road and the single-family residences primarily located along that area, and then Anderson Road to the east. Oh, before I get to that, let me jump back. Again, this shows the site layout as it's proposed. Additional information is provided in the staff report. Do want to acknowledge that there is a minimum required buffer setback or side, I guess in this case, yeah, side yard setback buffer to the residential area to the north of 10 feet. The applicant, as they've stated, is proposing a 37-foot building setback and retaining 15 feet of existing tree buffer. Again, I noted that did have some conversations with some of the neighbors immediately to the north along Sundet Road. Some have provided some photos of the current conditions from their backyard or backyards. You can see through the trees some of the grading that has occurred already at this point. A wider view here. Again, along with that, these are photos from the same neighbor that provided a email and asked that the email be provided to you here tonight, along with these photos. So I'm doing that since this is a public discussion item. It's an item, again, to be discussed publicly amongst the Plan Commission with staff providing information here along with the applicant. But I did explain that certainly some additional information is worth sharing with the Plan Commission here in your consideration tonight. It is 2 pages, the email I handed out. The front page, or the longer page, is the reply, communication back and forth with the property owner, the neighbor, and the back side, which is kind of a half page, does show the initial question submitted last Friday. So with that, again, quite a bit of neighborhood interest in this proposed project. The applicant has reached out to the neighborhood association. You can see the current conditions in the area. And with that, again, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Allen, I understand there's a sidewalk on the residential property to the north on Anderson Drive. So I'm assuming it's something we can do to require that, as well as I don't see a pedestrian connection from the public street either, so those could be 2 conditions we could add. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Thank you for pointing those out. Did speak with Deputy City Engineer Leah Ness earlier today as well, and she confirmed the same. So thank you for pointing that out. It's something that staff would normally call attention to in advance of the meeting, but appreciate you catching that at this time. As you can see there, exactly, there is a sidewalk on the west side as well as on the east side in portions along Anderson Drive that can certainly add that as a condition of approval to extend that further south. As you can see here, it would be a small portion primarily along that island between the 2 proposed driveways, as well as a small piece on the north along the proposed stormwater detention. And then, yes, certainly providing for connection there too from the front door to that sidewalk. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? Mr. Seymour.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, I just want to ask you, this is zoned I-1. Could you, what does that mean exactly?
I don't have I missed that one. Sorry, I missed including the zoning map, since it is a site plan and not a rezoning request. It is the, I guess the least, it's one of the broader industrial zoning districts in the city. We have 2 zoning districts, I-1, I-2. This one in particular would allow for manufacturing. There's that buffering requirement when it's adjacent to residential, and that's what they're providing for here. So in this case, they are manufacturing, to clarify, and I'll defer to the applicant to specify more detail of their operations, but they are currently located actually near this area. They currently do manufacture professional grade log splitters for residential and commercial use. They currently have just 7 employees at the moment. They're looking to expand to add 3 additional jobs, and their current hours of operation is 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So all those parameters fit within industrial zoning throughout the city. And again, there's no planned development for this property. It's just base zoning of industrial I-1. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one. So I'm sorry, the email that we got from a member which expressed concern about the boundary on the north side behind the houses on Runway Avenue there. The plan shows for that to be existing trees, is that right?
Correct. Let me
Okay.
show- This shows, oops.
Can anyone
There we
from staff comment on whether that boundary has been acceptable in previous developments like this?
Well, the minimum is 10 feet.
The minimum is 10 feet.
Correct, and.
In distance between the trees?
Between the trees or from as a buffer?
As a buffer.
Right, the width of the buffer, minimum of 10 feet. The applicant is providing for a 37-foot distance to the building and then an additional 15 feet of the tree buffer. So they are providing 50% increase in a standard tree buffer from what one would normally see. And they are also, again, explained in their narrative and shown here in the site plan, the employee parking is on the south side rather than on the north side.
Okay.
And again, they're also providing for the stormwater detention, as you can see there, to the northeast as additional, I guess, buffer, especially with the, any kind of truck movements in and out through those driveways. So it does vary in terms of the setback, both from pavement, the building, and then also that buffer. But I think the photos here show fairly well just kind of where their proposed area would be. Again, I may defer to the applicant to perhaps further explain if additional grading may be happening or tree removal, but they are intending to leave 15 feet. Again, that can certainly be a part of the conditions of approval if you see fit tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennel.
In one of the photos, there's the telephone connection pedestal showing. I think it demonstrates that essentially all of the trees are on the industrial parcel and all the grass is on the private parcel.
That's my understanding as well.
So that all the trees here would in fact be part of the official buffer that belongs to the industrial parcel. They are not privately owned by the adjacent parcel.
Right.
That's generally accurate, yes. And it's also, I think, worth noting that these trees are certainly more mature than what you might normally see in you could have a greenfield setting for a landscape buffer or any other kind of separation similar to this. Again, it's a little bit harder to see here in terms of this aerial. That yellow line is very close to where a lot of those trees are, and this is leaf-off conditions, so it's hard to see a lot of the deciduous trees and where the location is. But again, a fair amount have been removed as part of the preparatory work from the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or from the commission here? All right, I see none.
All right, thank you.
This is a public discussion, so we will move on to the applicant. Is the applicant here?
Hi there, everybody. I'm Chris Wolf, owner of Wolf Ridge Manufacturing.
Hi. Anything you want to add?
I think that there's the opposition that's been brought forward was preemptive. It wasn't, a lot of people didn't understand what was happening with the property. We do feel that we're totally within specifications for this site. We do operate, first shift business, everything that we do is indoors. We have will be in a fairly attractive, is in terms of industrial setting. It won't be like Banbury Place where it's, a huge brick building, directly across the street from residential housing. We have, in the plan, you can see, we do have the existing tree line. We also have shrubs and whatnot out front of our building. It's going to be a light gray color. It's not going to be some, crazy blue or, unappealing structure. We do keep, I do try to keep a nice aesthetic appearance to the building. And, any kind of concern with noise, we have, in the building plan, we have increased the amount of insulation in the building. We do plan to have an air-conditioned facility in the summertime so that doors are not open. Any noise that comes from inside the building should stay inside the building, during those, during that time. We are a small company growing rather quickly. We do ship nationwide. We don't have a lot of customers that come to our shop. Most of what we build gets sold and shipped outside of the state. I would say only 5% of our sales are actually in the state of Wisconsin. So therefore, I don't think traffic is going to be an issue, and traffic would, I would say 90 to 95% would come from the south. It is a little more inconvenient to go up through the neighborhood and then, back around the other direction. So closest access to a highway would be from the south as well. A little background on myself. I'm from Eau Claire. I do live on the south side of Eau Claire. I've lived in Eau Claire along Birch Street. Somebody mentioned Birch Street and traffic earlier tonight. I lived on Bellevue Avenue back in the 70s and 80s. I'm definitely cognizant of, how industry plays a role in the surrounding neighborhood with Uniroyal and whatnot. But my intentions are to have a nice, clean facility, and that's about it. Any questions?
All right. Any questions from the commission? I see none. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So this is a item for public discussion, so I will see if there's a motion from the commission. Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd make a motion to approve with staff recommendations, but also to include in the draft letter a sidewalk on Anderson Drive, as well as a pedestrian connection from that public sidewalk to the front of the building.
All right. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Christopherson. All right. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
If I
Allen.
may, again, another point of clarification.
Yes.
To clarify Commissioner Seymour's question about industrial zoning districts more specifically, and we can include this in future staff reports as well. The I-1 zoning district is the light industrial zoning district, just to clarify, and differentiate from I-2, which is called our heavy industrial zoning district. So this is in the light industrial zoning district.
Okay.
So again, apologies for not clarifying that earlier. We can certainly include that in our future staff reports, just so you know kind of what our terminology is with these labels as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to express my support for this motion. I also sit on the Chippewa Valley Innovation Center Board, and Mr. Wolf is a graduate of that program, has been very forthcoming in supporting improvements in the building of the Innovation Center, keeping the outside, the exterior of the area he's working in clean. I would like to also commend the way that he interacted with the neighbors when he was beginning to clear the site that he's building on, because that just indicates the type of owner that he is and the way that he'll really relate to this community.
Good. Thank you for that information. Any other comments from the commission? I see none. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We have none. Congratulations. That motion passes. Item number 5 is public discussion for approval by Plan Commission for a site plan for nationwide floor and window coverings addition at 139 North Claremont Avenue.
I'll make this very long. The Packers are losing 19-13. Number 5 on the agenda is shown on the map on the west side of Eau Claire along Claremont Avenue. It's currently nationwide flooring and window covering. The facility is existing there. They're proposing 2 additions with this proposal in front of you. One of the additions is about 2,000 square feet and the other one's about 1,500 square feet. The 2,000 square foot addition is for a tenant in the future. The 1,500 square feet is for the store showroom expansion for nationwide. The proposed expansions are within the existing parking lot. This property is zoned C3P. The planned development is to allow for this commercial type business.